What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're starting off with something new for the channel. I want to create a series where we break down Hollywood VFX because I think it's something that is pretty underutilized in people that are creating any type of video. I think that if you're able to sit down, look at what they're creating on the big screen, obviously there's big groups of people creating these kind of effects, but there's still things that you can learn from, there's things you can take away from. So what I want to do with this series is bridge the gap between seeing these VFX videos that these big production companies put out and giving you more of a beginner-friendly technical explanation. So when I talk about bridging the gap between seeing these VFX videos and then actually trying to do some of the stuff yourself, what I mean is I'm going to give you guys the names of the softwares, I'm going to talk about some of the plugins they may be using, I'm going to talk about some of the techniques they may be using. A lot of these VFX videos, they give some amazing insight on the process of the post-production, but a lot of them don't really go into details of like the names of the software they're using, some of the ways you might get started in creating some of these 3D animations yourself. Even if it's at the most basic form, my job is to take what you see, take what you're interested in, and give you an explanation on where you can start and how it can benefit you and help you grow. So this video is going to be broken into 4 parts. Part 1 is going to talk all about compositing, how they use it in the show, and how you can translate what they do and the techniques that they use into your own personal work, like I said, no matter what kind of videos you're making. Part 2 is all going to be about 3D design and animation, and the reason why I put compositing as part 1 is because all these things that are going to come after, like 3D design, and then part 3 is all going to be using compositing. So compositing definitely most important. Part 2, like I said, 3D modeling and animation, and then part 3 is going to be simulation VFX, how you see it in the show and how you can recreate some of it in real life. Also, I forgot to mention it in the recording, but part 4 will be a giant breakdown of some battle scenes, and we'll talk about all the things we talked about in parts 1 through 3 and how they can all come together into one giant awesome thing. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get right into my breakdown. So let's start off with compositing. So we're going to play this little clip here, and there's a bunch of clips that you can check out. I'll leave all these videos that we're using in the description if you guys would like to check it out yourself. Obviously, they use green screen a huge amount in the show. The world of Westeros is so pleasing to the eye and so fantastical because of all the fantasy elements of it that they need green screen to be able to kind of buff up real life and get these better looks. You create this giant beautiful sept or church that you see here. What they're doing is they built a set and then they have green screen and they use compositing to do this. Now you as yourself can do this at home. It's pretty easy in any basic editing software. Most of them will have some sort of color key effect which you can use to drag onto a green screen clip and then replace the background. I've made many videos talking about this, but this in itself is a good little breakdown of the layers that they used for the background. So this is the final shot, as you can see right here. This is the shot of the plate with the background 3D design of the church behind it, and then this is the clean plate of just the shot with the green screen taken out and the transparency grade. As you can see, here's what it looks like normal when taken out of camera. Lots of really cool stuff like this. Now sometimes you'll see these clips which are pretty funny, but what these kind of hilarious things serve as is just placeholders for people in post to go and composite out so that they know a general area and general measurements of where they want to put 3D animation or design. This in itself is a better explanation of that placeholder compositing I'm speaking of. As you can see, this is the final shot with the giant here. Play that through a little bit and you'll see this is what they shot originally. So they just have a normal person with this rod which is supposed to represent the height of the giant, and this is supposed to represent the movement. And then of course they have somebody taking this video in a green screen studio and they're able to composite it in. The key here is knowing those measurements, taking all the necessary steps before you shoot to plan it out to make sure it looks 100% photorealistic. That's very important. That's something that you can take away from this. Another little green screening tip that I want to mention is these blue crosses or just any kind of markers, X's, crosses on the green screen is going to help you a lot because you're going to be able to use that as a tracker point in your 3D compositing software. So for example, at After Effects, you can use just a normal motion track to put it on here. When you just have a blank wall, it gets hard because you have nothing to track onto. So this is a very important tip. I recently worked on a music video where it was a complete white background and I put some X's on the actual background to give me some markers, and that's what allowed me to create some awesome effects. So keep that in mind. Use that whenever you are on set. Another awesome shot right here. This is something that you can do at home very easily, and I'm pretty sure that Filmora has a full tutorial talking about this as well. So with all the shots where they have to have his fingers cut off here, what they do is they just put these green little mitts over his fingers and then they're able to composite them out to get this kind of stub look just like this, and then add the tips on using compositing or some sort of tracked 3D. Here's just a simple little set extension that you guys will see a lot, just adding onto a simple set they have to make it more fantastic. fantastic. Another example here of just set extensions, something that you can do very easily yourself at home by taking something and planning, thinking it out to be able to make it more marvelous. And now a word from our sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Filmora Pro. One of the main things that I see people commenting on my videos is asking for a free app where they can create some of these effects shown in my tutorials. So Filmora Pro is a great software. It's 100% free, and it's a great starting point for a lot of you people that are interested in some of the things shown in my videos. What you guys are looking at right now is the actual user interface for Filmora Pro. I'll leave a link down below if you want to go check it out. First impression of this, I really like the easy little interface for moving around the video and rotating. Also, it has a very nice, organized, professional feel. Easy importing of clips. You guys can pop over to the effects tab and you can try out all these different effects they have for you. For example, keying, like in that compositing that I was just talking about, all in here, 100% free. They also have some nice tools for color grading your clips, and then they even have cool stuff like this luminance key, and then you click on the clip just like you're going to your effect controls, click on the actual effect itself, and then they have some really nice, smooth drag and drop sliders that you guys can use for these values. So like I said, if you guys are interested, check out the download link below to learn more about Filmora Pro. Okay guys, so we talked about some cool methods for compositing. We're going to go over two more things before we move on to the second part, which is talking about 3D. So the first thing I want to cover here is what the software they use for compositing. Now in this case, they probably use something like Nuke, which is a node-based compositing software. Something like After Effects is a layer-based compositing software. They essentially do the same thing, but node-based compositing softwares are industry standard because having it node-based and being able to plug into a channel is easier in terms of automation, in terms of finding the node, especially if you're working with a lot of different layers. So definitely check out Nuke. You can do some cool stuff with that, but in the meantime, After Effects is a great alternative for people who are doing individual work. You can still do layer-based stuff just like this little breakdown. I thought that this was a great clip to visualize how layers kind of stack against each other. And then to wrap up our compositing section, we're going to break down this clip right here. So let's play this in full speed so you guys can check it out. So here's just a little play-by-play. As you can see, they have some assets here, and we're going to go step by step to talk about this. They even incorporate some 3D models just to add on to the actual walls, and then this gatehouse. And then they have something like a matte painting here to really add in that fantastical background. So let's back up a second, start from the first frame of this, and I think this can be pretty beneficial to give you a good idea of what the compositing process is like. So starting with frame one, what they do is basically have a normal shot of the horizon line with the clouds, the kind of color they're looking for. And then they add in these mountains on the left. What this is doing is it's adding in depth, and you can see the only part of this back is these clouds here and this little ridge, which is great for the background. These clouds, like I said, that adds depth, it shows distance. You can see this is a little bit faded out in the background, and then we bring in the matte painting itself. This is a great idea for something crazy like this where you have a giant fantastical establishing shot. So using Photoshop, you could do something very similar. Now this next step, very important, and this is one of the biggest tips I can give you in this entire video, is to build up a giant library of assets just like this. Smoke, fire, dust, anything that you can find which you can bring in and composite into your scene helps bring to life these kind of composited looks. This is really what ties it all together. It makes it look like there's clouds really flowing between these rocks and between here, and that's how you get that nice realistic feel. So like I said, in terms of the blending itself, using things like feathering in your masking is a great way to blend. Color correction. So with this scene here, you're going to see it tied into what they shot in real life. This is the shot itself of them walking up this kind of rocky area, and then they're going to add on top of it here. So we'll play it through using some masking and feathering just to easily blend that onto the horizon line, adding some little 3D rocks just to make it a little more rocky. And then this part here as well, I made a full tutorial talking about something similar to this. This is using 3D tracking and a 3D object to match the movement of the camera. So the camera is just simply panning up. They used a 3D camera tracker to make sure that this model is fitting to that camera's positioning. And then of course the color correction to make it blend in with the environment. And to top it all off, they had some little 3D animated characters on there with some flags just to add that more lifelike feel. Now we can talk about part two of this video, which is 3D design and animation, the cornerstone behind creating the fantastical elements of this, like dragons, all the other amazing things that they did so well with the show. I think a great thing to transition into 3D is talking about how compositing works with 3D. And then we'll talk more about things like this. So in terms of compositing, this little part here is something that I think is interesting and I think you guys can take away from. In particular, creating the Unsullied, these giant armies here, especially for like a scene like this where there's huge crowds. One plugin that I know of really well that does something like this is called GOLAEM. I'll leave a link below if you're more interested in that. I'm pretty sure it's a plugin for Maya, which is a 3D software, and you can use that to create these huge, massive crowds, which is necessary for Game of Thrones in many different parts. So check out this little clip here. Awesome way to composite in large armies. If you guys would like, I can make a full tutorial step-by-step on GOLAEM if you guys are more interested in that, and maybe you guys can incorporate that into any kind of videos like music videos or short films. I think that would be pretty cool. So expect a tutorial on that coming soon. So for a lot of you beginners out there, this 3D kind of work probably looks super complicated, and to someone just starting out, it may look like this is completely out of your reach for being able to create, but this is actually very doable. So I like this part here because it's showing the most basic form of the dragons. It's just showing the basic mesh with the rig that they have around it. This is very possible for you to do, just getting a simple dragon mesh like this. You could even go into Blender and carve this out yourself. Learning how to rig it is very important, and that's what puts the spine in it that allows you to animate this to create these different movements. And of course, compositing is what brings this into the scene. So learn your compositing first. That's the most important step. So as we move along here is the base shot that she acted out with right here, and then here is bringing in the actual normal mesh of the dragon. You can see it's not really composited in yet. And then, like I said, adding this compositing to really blend them into the environment by adding shadows just like this. And here's another great little breakdown. When we talk about compositing, that really does translate into 3D as well, where we have these layers, or in specific node based. If you have Cinema 4D, which I've made some tutorials on, that's node based as well, where you can plug in these different channels. There's tons of free models out there that you can download right now, plug it into something that's free like Blender, or maybe pick up Cinema 4D, watch some tutorials and learn about how to make this look photorealistic. Then go and watch some beginner tutorials learning about animation. If you start building up that knowledge, then something like this doesn't get that far out of reach. It's very possible. So this shot right here is a great little breakdown of the texture maps that are going to go onto the dragon, as well as the animation spine that you're going to see right here, and also the detail for the textures itself. Here's the mesh and adding in some details. You can create something like this in Blender, ZBrush, anything like that. And then of course, adding the texturing on something like Substance Painter is a great software for that. So this video, in my opinion, one of the best showcases of some of the design behind the scenes of the 3D work. If you want to check that out, like I said, they'll all be linked down below. Little look at the 3D characters they created for the Unsullied. Here's the animations they created, all these custom ones that can really fit into these crowds. Here's the Dothraki. It looks amazing. I really like that little part of this. Here's the actual dragon models, which is pretty cool. And this is something that you could probably go into like the game files of Skyrim and find models for, or just look up dragon. Like, there's going to be so many different ones if you want to actually just mess with the texturing and get that down. Also showing the techniques they used for the animation, looking at different flight patterns on birds to get the flight animation of the dragon itself. So a mixture of a bat and an eagle, which is pretty cool. And showing the scaling here of the dragon compared to a human, which is important, like I said, with the measurements when you're going in and compositing in some green screen like Danny sitting on the dragon that you're about to see on this next clip. Here's some concept art. Very important in designing everything. The whole design process is one of the most important parts of the creative thinking behind setting a scene up. So here, as you see here, here's what we got Danny green screen on there with her little dragon rig that she got. So that's how they're able to create this. More concept art for the battle itself, recreating some of these scenes. So if there's one thing that you can really take away from great VFX, it's that the planning is top notch. You really need to plan, and this is something you can do as an individual. Like I said, this is going to help you. So we mentioned some ways where planning out a shoot can help you in a great way, like putting those trackers up, something like that. Thinking about it and conceptualizing about the idea, writing things down, even if it's just writing up a music video treatment. If you are working on music videos, that's what's going to really bring the vision to life and allow you to create some amazing things. Studying the structure of these huge budget workflows is, I think, a great resource. Something like this where you see them planning out a shot. What they have here is the most basic little animated placeholder shot to kind of conceptualize the idea that they're going for. That's a great tip because you don't have to sit down and just work on, you don't have to sit down with the mindset that you're going to create this amazing thing starting from scratch. It's a great idea sometimes to just work on something that doesn't look as good. It still fits the perspective that you're trying to fill. For example, the camera movement, for example, the animation, for example, the spacing of everything. Creating this low poly version of that is a great way to have this placeholder plan moving forward, where then you can add the detail to be able to finalize that shot. So that's also one of the key things that I can tell you guys, is to think, plan, conceptualize. Even if it's writing it down on a piece of paper, creating a rough drawing, that's what's going to help you create amazing stuff. That's what's helped me in the past, just writing notes, keeping everything logged down in an idea. I guarantee you some of the best directors of music videos or whatever kind of videos you guys are creating yourself, they don't just pick their camera up and walk walk to their job whenever they have a client and then just shoot random stuff. They're thinking and planning before they get there. Then of course, once you get there, you can improvise, you can work off what you get, and that's when a lot of amazing things can happen. Key to bringing things to life all starts up here in your head, your imagination. So make sure you can translate that idea in a way that helps you in the best way, whether, like I said, it's writing down notes, drawing pictures, creating rough little sketches in After Effects or 3D software like they do here. Okay guys, so now that we talked about the design and animation behind 3D, let's talk about some of the simulation that you guys are going to be seeing throughout this video. So here's a great little example. The entire Battle of Hardhome and a lot of the stuff on the wall has some great simulation visual effects. Here's a little composite breakdown of the layers that they did. But other than that, let's kind of skip along here. From a Cinema 4D perspective, creating things like fire, you can create with something like Turbulence FD, or if you guys want a free software where you can create some beautiful looking simulation particle visual effects like fire, etc., like fire, water, etc. Houdini Apprentice version, 100% free. I recommend you pick that up. You can get Houdini, create some sort of cool fire, water, ice, whatever, smoke, whatever it is, export that and bring it into something like Blender, Cinema 4D for the compositing. So that is a great little tip. That Apprentice version is 100% free, so make sure you guys utilize that. If you want to keep it After Effects strictly, a great little simulation particle plugin is Red Giant Particular. Here's a few more great examples of some simulation stuff. So if you guys want, I can put out a Cinema 4D Turbulence FD tutorial where I can talk about creating some smoke like this, or if you want some Houdini stuff, let me know. That's an option that I can explore with. There's a bunch of different ways where we can create this. Here's another amazing one. And like I said, I'm giving you mainly a Cinema 4D perspective here, but in terms of creating something like this, where our dragon is splashing in the water and coming out with all this water raising, mixture of compositing here, and for the actual water particles coming up with the dragon, you can use a plugin called REALFLOW in Cinema 4D to really get these particle simulation. We have those actual physics at work, so when you put a mesh of a dragon going in here, all of these particles are going to react to it as if it was really rising out of water and creating this beautiful stuff like this. So that's a really cool example of some of the cool stuff you can do with simulation. And then of course the granddaddy of simulation VFX, destroying the wall with ice dragon fire, whatever you want to call it, blue dragon fire. So just imagine all of the particles that went into really creating this beautiful, crazy destruction. So it's really amazing what they're able to do, and with destruction you can create some really awesome stuff. Now in terms of simulation, I also want to mention one little thing you guys can do by yourselves, and that is in this little scene coming up. So something like this where we have this normal little flame coming up, you can do that easily with Particular, with After Effects, Red Giant Particular. I'll leave a link below. Just simple little particle like that added in to create this crazy flailing fire mace. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it did give you some insight and useful tips for your own personal projects that you guys are working on. My main goal for giving you something like this is just talking about what you can learn from these big Hollywood projects, just talking about the workflow, giving you guys any tips that I might pick up while watching these that may help the average person be able to create something cool, create something similar, or even just take something that you're interested in, open a door, push you in the right direction that may help you in some way to create some amazing stuff. If you want any other ones like Harry Potter VFX breakdowns, anything along those lines, let me know. I'm happy to make that. It is a lot of fun doing this, and I think that for myself, watching these and breaking it down, it does actually help me as well to be able to refresh myself, learn some new things from watching this. It's very underutilized. It's something that I think a lot more people should pay attention to as a creator and don't overlook. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys in the next one.